Imagine for a second that you step into the headquarters of, say, a huge global conglomerate, and you realize the CEOs aren't. Well, they aren't just CEOs, they're ancient magical entities. The security guards are half demons, some with skin literally as hard as iron, and their idea of a hostile takeover involves things like blood rituals and dimensional travel.
Yeah.
Today, we are taking a really deep dive into the absolute core of this corporate underworld. We're going to be analyzing the structure of these organizations they call cabals. You've got the Cortez, the Nast, Boyd, and St. Cloud dynasties. And these aren't just businesses. They are fundamentally supernatural, profit-driven empires.
And that whole framework, that whole system of industrialized magic is, well, it's starting to fracture right now. The incredibly strange sort of siloed politics of this hidden world have led them straight into a crisis. Targeted, chilling series of attacks on the children of their most essential, high-value employees.
This is corporate espionage taken to a completely lethal supernatural extreme.
It absolutely is.
We've got a stack here of some extremely sensitive internal documents, fragmented forensic reports, transcribed interviews, and they detail this intense and, often illegal investigation that they mounted in response. Our mission, as always, is to cut through all the magical jargon, the layers of corporate paranoia. We need to identify the key players, try to grasp the impossible politics that keep these groups from actually working together, trace all these complex leads, from necromancers channeling the comatose to confrontations with literal druid gods, and ultimately uncover the true underlying corporate motive behind these coordinated, brutal killings.
It's a spectacular example of what happens when you filter absolute magical power through just petty corporate self-interest. The Cabals, especially the Corteses, they're defined by profit, by self-preservation, and this near constant infighting. The very structure that makes them so powerful is also what prevents them from mounting any kind of unified defense. In this crisis, it's just magnified because these massive organizations are politically restrained. They can't just call the cops, and they are deeply, deeply reluctant to share any information, even when their own kids are the targets.
And that structural flaw, that inherent inability to trust anyone, that sets the stage for a truly complex investigation. One where success depends entirely on building a network outside the established corporate system.
Completely.
Okay, so before we even get into the attacks themselves, we really need to understand the playing field here. These four cabals, Cortez, Nast, Boyd, and St. Cloud, they're not just rivals, are they?
No, not at all. They represent distinct forms of supernatural power that are all applied to a single goal: global profit. Each one has its own specialty.
Let's break that down then. What does the source material actually tell us about what each of them does?
Well, the Cortez Cabal, which is where a lot of our source material comes from, they're primarily focused on law, finance, and legitimacy.
Or at least looking legitimate.
Exactly, the appearance of legitimacy. They're all about massive legal maneuvering banking. They rely heavily on powerful half-demons and witches for their protection, for magical enforcement, but all while maintaining this highly public, sanitized corporate image.
And that need for legal cover is why Lucas Cortez, the CEO's son, who's actively working against the Cabal, is so important to them, isn't it?
It's a huge irony. He's a valuable asset because he's on the outside. Yeah. He provides plausible deniability, external legal firewalls. He's their rogue element they can point to.
So Cortez is the polished, public-facing, maybe even money laundering side of things. What about the Nast Cabal? They play a huge role later on.
The Nasts are the complete opposite. They are all about industrial power, military security contracts, heavy infrastructure. They're rougher, much more pragmatic, and far more likely to just engage in direct hostile action. Their whole game is physical dominance and security.
Which explains so much about what happens later.
It's critical. It explains why Edward the vampire was specifically seeking refuge from the Nasts. They were the ones who were actively hunting him down. They're the muscle.
And Boyd and St. Cloud, they're more in the background.
For the most part, yeah. They're background rivals in this particular story. Boyd is often linked with technology and magical innovation, kind of like the R&D wing of the four, and St. Cloud is more diffuse. They're seen as the oldest, most traditional, maybe the most politically difficult.
Okay, so the fact that the victim list we see later spans three of them, Cortez, Nast, and St. Cloud, that's significant.
Oh, it's huge. It confirms the attacker sees this as systemic revenge. It's not just a personal grudge against Benicio Cortez. It's against the entire corporate supernatural structure.
Okay, so we have the political map. Now let's get into the crisis itself. It starts with the attack on Dana MacArthur in Atlanta. Dana, a teenage witch, daughter of a half-demon employee. She's found strangled, strung up, and left in a coma.
And the critical point here isn't just the victim, it's the response. It was immediate and overwhelming. The Cortez Cabal security team, they didn't wait for, the local PD to fumble around with the case. We see their internal fast response team dispatched instantly, headed by Dennis Malone, head of security, and a tech named Simon.
And their whole operational model gives you this core insight into how the Cabals wield power, doesn't it? I mean, Simon's notes, they explicitly state that their private lab operates far faster than standard municipal crime labs.
And the reason is simple. He says there's no political wrangling about overtime and budgets and case precedents.
Right.
Exactly. When a corporate asset is threatened, the Cabal just throws resources at it. No budget limits, no public scrutiny. They're basically a sovereign investigative body, and that speed is probably what saved Dana's life.
But the case immediately becomes sensitive.
Instantly. Because her father, Randy MacArthur, is a known employee. He's an exodio half-demon, which means he doesn't have inherited powers himself. But his wife is a witch, which makes Dana a powerful supernatural asset in her own right.
So Dana's a target for two reasons. Valuable to the Cabal through her father's job, and valuable to the attacker because of her own magic.
Precisely. And the complexity it ratchets up immediately. Before they can even fully process the Atlanta incident, the second attack happens. And this one strikes even closer to the security core. Jacob Griffin.
Jacob, the oldest son of a really valuable bodyguard, he goes missing in Miami right after making a panicked call to their emergency line. And this is where we see that concept of specialized corporate assets really come into play.
Oh, absolutely. Jacob's father, Griffin, is a Feratus half-demon. That is a rare and immensely powerful subtype. His skin can literally harden to iron when he invokes his defenses.
So he's irreplaceable.
Completely. A critical specialized security asset. Losing his child doesn't just destabilize Griffin emotionally. It's a strategic, military-grade blow to the corporation's entire defense capacity. This isn't just about emotional loss. It's a security failure that impacts a $100 million asset.
And the search for him was frantic, right? Centered on this dilapidated area of Miami. It just confirms how high value the family was. The attacker knew exactly where to strike to cause the most corporate pain.
And when you look at Dana and Jacob together, and then later you see the data files that confirm it, the victim profile it's chillingly specific.
What is it?
The targets are children of Cabal employees, often supernaturals themselves, witches, half-demons, but crucially, they're living unstable lives. They're runaways, they're estranged, or living alone. Dana, for instance, was separated from her mother at the time.
That points to some meticulous planning. The attacker wasn't going after the most magically powerful targets.
No.
They were going after the most logistically vulnerable assets. Kids who were strategically valuable to the Cabals, but who were also easily accessible out on the street, the easy marks.
And that vulnerability, that exposure, it reveals this major structural weakness in how the Cabals handle HR and asset protection. They care deeply about their employees, but only in relation to their function. So if the child of a key employee runs away, they're suddenly seen as a low-priority administrative problem, which leaves them completely exposed to an outside threat.
So the crisis is established. Now we bring in the investigators. We have Lucas Cortez, the anti-Cabal lawyer, and Paige Winterbourne, a powerful witch, former coven leader and, well, Lucas's partner and security expert. And Lucas being the son of the CEO, Benicio Cortez, that creates an immediate political minefield.
This is where you really have to analyze Benicio's strategy. He's the ultimate mastermind of manipulation. The sources make it clear he's using this crisis not really to find the killer,
but to pull Lucas back in.
To pull Lucas back into the family's political orbit, yes. He appeals directly to Paige's conscience, using her history as a coven leader, and he forces Lucas to supervise her investigation under the guise of providing security for her.
But the documents suggest his maneuvering goes much deeper than just family drama. We see evidence of Benicio offering Lucas these really complex, often non-profit cases, like defending a shaman who was set up. On the surface, it looks humanitarian, but really it's, a tactical strike.
They're absolutely tactical strikes against rival cabals. Benicio uses these cases as both a carrot and a stick. The carrot is giving Lucas the independence he wants. The stick is forcing Lucas into political situations that benefit the Cortez Cabal. He's trying to regain control, or at least force Lucas to owe him favors. It's a long game of corporate political chess.
And this inherent dysfunction, this political game playing, leads us to a critical logistical challenge that Lucas points out. Why do the Cabals fail so madly at joint investigations, even when there's a shared threat?
It all comes down to their profit-driven structure. Lucas explains it perfectly. They're built around absolute self-preservation and market dominance, not cooperation. And that creates three huge hurdles. First, the infighting over who would even lead the investigation, since no Cabal wants to concede authority. Second, an absolute fear of sharing sensitive information. Their proprietary magical contacts, their security techniques, their internal HR data. And third, a reluctance to put their most valuable assets at risk. They're willing to accept certain losses as just collateral damage.
So they would rather let a killer continue to run free than open their books to a rival. The internal conflict is the real enemy here.
It is. And this structural paralysis is what makes an external independent investigator Paige not just helpful, but absolutely essential to solving this case.
Okay, so since Dana MacArthur is in a coma, traditional questioning is out. The investigation immediately pivots to something highly specialized: forensic necromancy. They call in Jamie Vegas, the celebrity necromancer, famously known as the Diva of the Dead.
And this detail's fascinating, isn't it? They hire a celebrity to talk to what is essentially a ghost.
Does the supernatural community really embrace that level of showmanship?
Oh, absolutely. Jamie's stage persona is the perfect cover. It provides a necessary distraction for her deadly serious work. She's the granddaughter of a legendary necromancer, Molly O'Casey, but she uses the flashy Vegas name and style. Her whole method is conversational. She'll tell you a funny story to disarm you, and then suddenly drop this profound, specific insight from a spirit she's channeling.
They meet at the Marsh Clinic, which is a private Cabal hospital. Another example of this bespoke corporate infrastructure they've built for themselves. And Jamie uses channeling, letting Dana's spirit speak directly through her.
And it works. It immediately yields concrete, actionable intelligence. The first key clue is auditory. Dana remembers hearing her attacker speak, and he used a name, Mesha, or maybe Nashar. And critically, the attacker claimed he was doing it, the ritual sacrifice for this person. That establishes the motive as relational, not just random violence.
But the necromancer's job here goes beyond just gathering clues. It involves a profound emotional risk for her. Jamie makes a shocking realization.
She does. She realizes that Dana has already crossed over. She is spiritually dead, but her spirit doesn't know it yet.
Wow.
And that is a traumatic realization for Jamie, whose power is all about bridging these realms, but to avoid causing Dana distress, and more importantly, to keep the information flowing. Jamie makes this high-stakes ethical call. She lies to the spirit. She tells Dana she's fine, she'll wake up soon. It's a decision that protects the investigation, but also the integrity of that ghost world interaction.
And because she opened that channel, something else starts happening, right? A mysterious entity starts poltergeisting Jamie, trying to communicate.
Yes, this entity, which we later confirm is Natasha's spirit, is trying desperately to signal the living. It starts knocking down specific books, notably Salem's Lot and the Iliad, and it manipulates Lucas's daytimer to show names, starting with D.
Salem's Lot, a classic vampire novel. That's a huge piece of early foreshadowing, even if they don't get it at the time.
A massive piece.
Yeah.
The entity is leveraging the necromancer's presence to get their attention, basically feeding them spectral intelligence.
So, with the spiritual forensics underway, the team pivots back to something a bit more mundane, but just as critical. Data analysis. How did the killer choose the victims? And their investigation focuses on a man named Everett Weber.
Right. A contract employee with the Cortez Cabal, who they discover had accessed confidential files on the runaway children of Cabal employees.
Weber is a classic corporate security failure then, the rogue contractor with way too much access.
A textbook case. Paige, being the expert which she is, cracks his encrypted files, and the evidence is just. It's damning. The files have lists of supernatural teenagers. Dana MacArthur is on there, and it confirms the scope of the pre-planning.
And the selection criteria in those files are: they're surgical, runaways, indicated by a data field, living with parents, and who are also the children of high-ranking employees.
And it confirms the pattern is systemic. It's designed for maximum political impact across 3 cabals: Cortez, Nast, and St. Cloud.
The data proves the attacker is highly organized, had some kind of insider access, and was deliberately targeting the system's weakest points.
Absolutely. So Lucas and Paige, with Adam, a powerful exustio half-demon who can control fire, as their backup, they corner Weber to question him. But the corporate hacker lead. It immediately goes mythological.
Before they can get anything out of him, Weber is violently possessed or commanded by some ancient entity.
The interrogation just explodes into a violent, immediate attack. Weber, acting on this command, attacks Paige with a knife and slits her throat.
And Lucas is forced to use a knockback spell on Adam.
Yeah, because Adam, acting on pure instinct, was rushing in and might have made things worse. Paige is gravely wounded, and they have to get her to a specialized half-demon-run clinic. The real takeaway here is that the Cabal's own secrecy forces them to rely on these archaic, unreliable third-party data sources like druid deities, simply because they won't share clean, reliable HR or security files with each other.
Okay, so the corporate hacker lead just evaporated in a fountain of ancient power. Let's see how the team puts this new mythological data point together with the forensics. The entity that possessed Weber, they identify it as Esus, a druid deity, god of woodland and water.
And Esus presents in this incredibly unsettling form, an old woman's desiccated corpse, speaking with this strange mix of a Scottish burr and American idioms. It suggests an ancient power trying, maybe clumsily, to operate in the modern world.
And his motivation, once they figure it out, grounds this supernatural entity right back in the corporate world.
It really does. Weber was a worshiper who's basically using the deity as a go-between, brokering minor supernatural deals to get cash for a mundane life. And Esus is furious that the Cabals killed Weber. They sentenced him to death for the attacks, which the deity confirms was a purely political move.
He says something like, once the Cabals had a suspect, they weren't letting the truth get in the way.
May letting anything as inconvenient as the truth get in their way, yeah. It just confirms Lucas's earlier analysis. For them, corporate optics trump justice every single time. Esus confirms Weber was paid by an unknown figure, gives a physical description of the killer, and confirms the name Nasha is related to Nakashar.
Okay, let's unpack that mythological link. They bring in Robert Vasek, a trusted scholar of demonology, and he says Nakashar is an eudemon, a benevolent, constructive demon who would never accept human sacrifice.
Right, so that instantly discredits the initial ritual theory based on what Dina's spirit heard. The pieces don't fit.
So what does Vasek suggest?
He suggests Macha, a Celtic deity, an aspect of the Morrigan who does accept human sacrifice. And given the connection to the druid deity Esus and the descriptions of the attacker, it seems like a much more likely focus for the killings. It just shows you need rapid, highly specialized academic analysis to even validate your supernatural intelligence.
But the true, actionable lead that cuts through all the mythological confusion comes from a more reliable source. Aaron, a long-lived vampire contact.
Yeah, Aaron comes through. He reveals these rumors, just gossip in the supernatural community, about two specific vampires, Edward and Natasha. And they were questing for immortality and involved in some nasty shit up in Ohio, specifically the Cincinnati area. And that location, that context, it perfectly matches the file data in what Esus described. The focus of the investigation shifts entirely to finding Edward.
So following that definitive lead on Cincinnati, Paige knows they need a professional on the inside. She calls Cassandra DuCharme, a powerful vampire council member and an old acquaintance of her mother. But this decision it's highly contentious.
Cassandra is very reluctant, and you can see why. This isn't just a police investigation for her. This is Paige asking a vampire leader to betray one of her own kind, even if the suspect is a sociopathic killer. It pits her loyalty to her race against the anti-Cabal cause.
The investigation takes them to the Rampart Bar in New Orleans, a kind of low-profile hangout for local vampires. The atmosphere is described as early Gothic nightmare, which I love. It shows how supernaturals cluster in their own hidden communities for safety.
It's a crucial world-building moment, yeah. And you see the tension between community duty and this corporate maneuvering. Aaron, the contact, he critiques Cassandra. He tells her she's disconnected from the community because she stopped actively participating in the council decades ago. It suggests she's professionally insulated, but maybe politically vulnerable.
And that insulation is exactly why Paige trusts her. They head to Edward and Natasha's rural cabin hideout near Cincinnati, and the things they find there, they're not just evidence, they're like artifacts from a horror show.
It's bad. They find surgical instruments, potion ingredients like sulfur and rosemary, things you could buy at any New Age shop, and a massive, gleaming ebony coffin. But the most damning evidence it's the atmosphere, the smell. Cassandra confirms the faint but unmistakable odor of human blood in the bathtub.
And they figure out the tub was used for harvesting materials from multiple humans, not just simple vampire feeding. They also find a locked journal.
Yes, and the journal provides the motive. It's full of entries detailing materials, variations, and subtypes. It confirms they were performing these dark experimental rituals in a quest for immortality. The timeline suggests Edward was desperately trying to secure this immortality, maybe to win Natasha back after she left him, which happened shortly before her death.
So this elevates Edward from a simple murderer to a calculating, ritualistic killer who's obsessed with eternal life.
Exactly.
The motive is becoming clear, but the actual catalyst for the rampage is still missing. Why now? Lucas leverages his father's intelligence network, and Benicio sources deliver the final definitive blow. The Nast Cabal assassinated Natasha. They beheaded her after she and Edward fled, believing that would teach Edward a lesson.
And that's it. Edward's current rampage is a direct, calculated campaign of revenge against the corporate system that killed his mate. In his warped mind, he's seeking justice for a fatal corporate policy decision, the Nast refusing him sanctuary and then executing Natasha.
The threat level spikes immediately then, as Edward realizes the investigators are closing in. This is confirmed when Jamie, the necromancer, is violently attacked psychically back in their hotel room.
Twin puncture marks appear on her neck, spurting arterial blood. And this whole sequence is a masterclass in demonstrating specialized knowledge. Cassandra steps in immediately. She applies vampire saliva to the wounds, and it instantly seals them, stops the arterial bleeding.
And that action confirms two things.
Exactly. One, the attacker was either a vampire, or two, someone who had such deep knowledge of vampire physiology they could perfectly fake the wounds and know the only antidote.
And Lucas connects the dots. The poltergeist, Natasha's ghost, was using the trauma of the psychic attack and these familiar vampire-like wounds to signal the only other vampire there, Cassandra.
Natasha is trying to communicate vital information about Edward's ritual plan to the only person who can stop him. And Cassandra provides the critical analysis of Edward's thinking. He went to the Cabals for sanctuary, he was rejected, and he lost Natasha. So he sees the Cabals not as corporate rivals, but as murderers who deserve to have their own children taken from them. He sees the children as collateral damage.
The Cabals created the very monster that is now hunting them by prioritizing their corporate safety over a human life.
Precise.
Recognizing that the investigation has now moved way beyond conventional detection, Lucas seeks out truly proprietary insight. He takes Paige to see Faye, a clairvoyant who's a resident at a Cortez-run mental health facility.
And this facility, the sources reveal, it's a pretty grim testament to Cabal exploitation. It provides high-end care, but in reality, it houses people like Faye whose powerful gifts were overused, misused, and pushed them to the brink of sanity. She's a highly valued but very damaged information asset. And Lucas's relationship with her is tense because he's always refused to leverage her gift due to the strain it causes her.
But the crisis forces his hand, and Faye provides the crucial strategic insight they need. She confirms Edward is focused on the victim's proximity to Benicio Cortez, the CEO, and she suggests the next victim will be targeted at a large public event.
Which strongly suggests Edward is moving towards some kind of high-profile spectacle near the ultimate corporate target.
And this creates the final impasse. Hamie, after researching Edward's dark rituals, is kidnapped. The team realizes Edward's ultimate goal is now about opening a dimensional portal, and he needs the blood of someone who has passed through that portal ritual to reopen it permanently.
And that's when Lucas and Paige realize they had unwittingly activated the portal during their confrontation with Esus, or maybe just by being near the site of the attack on Weber. They are now the highest value targets for Edward's final sacrifice.
And Jamie's research confirms the ancient necromantic ritual. It needs what? A good old human sacrifice performed on the exact spot where the portal opened.
Right. And Edward probably needs Jamie's knowledge on how to open it because the full ritual is obscure. The only way to save Jamie and stop the portal is to set a trap.
So, based on Faye's prediction and the ritual requirements, Lucas and Paige agree to be the bait. They'll go to the Cabal masquerade knowing the hotel alley is the exact site of the portal opening. And they assembled the A-Team, a unified security force.
A truly impressive one.
Yeah.
You have the werewolves Elena, Clay, and Jeremy Danvers, the vampires Aaron and Cassandra, Shamie the necromancer, who they rescue just in time, and Savannah, Paige's witch ward.
But despite all that coordinated security, the plan goes sideways almost immediately. Edward attacks Lucas and Paige in the alley near the hotel's back exit. And Lucas is shot through the heart. He's instantly dead.
And Paige? She wakes up in this cold, damp darkness. And she realizes with this horrifying clarity that she has passed over into the ghost world. And it's not some heavenly afterlife. It's a terrifying, almost bureaucratic reality. And she's met there by her deceased mother, Eve, a powerful half-demon and former coven leader.
And the landscape of this ghost world is described in the sources as just, truly alien. a massive, bizarre chamber like a Greek temple with these bluish-white marble walls stretching into infinity.
And the walls are covered in mosaics that depict every single human experience: birth, death, joy, murder. And the images subtly, unnervingly moves, like a living catalog of existence managed by these eternal entities.
And in this chamber, they meet the ultimate authority, the fates, represented by the crone who clips the threads, the woman who measures them, and the child who spins them. This is the administrative office of existence itself.
And the conversation that follows is really the heart of the entire narrative. It analyzes fate not as some fixed destiny, but as a complex, volatile contract. The fates confirm Lucas is dead, but they also assure Paige their destinies are intertwined.
But Paige doesn't beg for his life.
No, she makes a defiant stand. She barters. She offers her future obedience, a future favor, a cosmic chip that the fates can cash in whenever they want, in exchange for Lucas's life and her continued guardianship of Savannah.
It's a high-stakes, unwritten contractual negotiation for a future's asset. She's trading a blank check on her compliance for the immediate strategic return of Lucas.
She uses their own rules against them, especially when the fates admit that obedience without acceptance is meaningless, and that they allow mortals to make their own mistakes. They acknowledge the ultimate cost of free will in their perfectly ordered system.
So Lucas is sent back first, miraculously healed, the bullet hole is gone, his heart is beating. Eve has a final moment with Paige, expressing how proud she is before pushing her back through the portal.
The emotional cost is immense, but the strategic outcome is secured. When they get back, the werewolves confirm they were physically missing for 18 hours. It just emphasizes the temporal distortion of that ghost world.
So the final showdown is now on Benicio's turf. Benicio, acting on Lucas's instructions, confronts Edward in the alley where the portal opened. He's serving as a distraction, as bait. The Cabal CEO is finally putting himself at risk to protect his family and, by extension, his corporation.
And Edward, driven entirely by his thirst for revenge and eternal life, prepares to kill Benicio to fully open the portal, using the blood of the two who just returned. But the unified A-Team, they execute their coordinated plan. And it showcases that this diverse, decentralized power is far superior to the centralized Cabal power. Savannah, the teenage ward, acts on cue. She casts a binding spell on Edward, and even though he quickly snaps the amateur spell, it provides a critical few seconds of delay, a tactical advantage provided by the weakest, youngest witch on the team.
And that's all they need. Edward pursues Lucas down the alley, and Jeremy Danvers, the pack leader, in his full wolf form, tackles him, clamps his jaws around the vampire's neck, and pins him to the pavement. Lucas and Paige race in and tie Edward up with rope. The supernatural assassin is captured, and it proves that coordinated action across all these disparate supernatural races can defeat the chaos, even chaos that was created by corporate policy. Edward is taken into custody. The threat is neutralized. And Paige, who is profoundly changed by her journey through death and her confrontation with the fates, she reaffirms her partnership with Lucas. She commits fully to his anti-Cabal investigations. She has seen the ultimate cost of power.
And as a final strategic move, to really solidify this new anti-Cabal network, Paige offers to help Dana MacArthur's mother, Gillian, the estranged witch wife of Randy MacArthur. This ensures the investigation's contacts remain open, and it leverages the personal relationships they forged during the crisis to maintain an independent network, completely outside of Benicio's control.
What a dense, intense, and fundamentally revealing deep dive. If we just step back and look at the sheer breadth of resources they needed to close this case, it's just astounding. This wasn't solved by police work. It required data hacking, forensic necromancy, complex legal strategy, werewolf tracking, and literally facing down the fates in another dimension.
And that is the core, undeniable takeaway here. True power, in this world of industrialized magic, it doesn't lie in the magical strength or the vast wealth of the centralized cabals. It's in a diverse, reliable, and decentralized network of contacts and specialized knowledge that actively transcends those self-serving corporate boundaries. The Cabal structure is brittle. The A-Team structure proved functional.
Aha moment that really cuts through all the magic and the corporate espionage for me is the stark high cost of Cabal politics. Edward's entire murderous rampage, the targeting of innocent children, was a direct result of corporate self-interest. The Cabals refused him sanctuary to avoid a conflict with the Nasts, which led to Natasha's assassination. The resulting collateral damage was a monster they created themselves through infighting.
And that raises a powerful, final provocative thought, which is rooted in Paige's ultimate contract negotiation with the Fates. They allowed Paige and Lucas to return, and they claimed that obedience without acceptance is meaningless, and that mortals are given the agency to make their own mistakes. So if knowledge is power, what does it truly mean for Paige to know the rules of fate, to know that her life's thread can be negotiated and traded?
Now that she has literally seen the threads of life and death being spun and clipped by the highest powers in existence, will she ever be able to treat her investigations, her partnership, or even her own fate the same way? Will that knowledge become a crushing burden, or will it be the ultimate strategic weapon in her war against the Cabals?
It's a philosophical futures contract that only time, and perhaps another deep dive, will ever resolve. We'll leave you to consider the cost of that knowledge as you integrate this story into your own understanding of power and politics.